But it didn't last. His mouth was pasty since he'd had nothing substantial to eat or drink in hours, and he thought maybe he could grab something from the mess and finish tidying his desk before calling it a day. Stoner rose from his desk and felt a muscle strain in his right hip. Although he continued to work out, age was definitely starting to catch up to him. Maybe a desk job made more sense than a field after 23 years in service. Of course, he observed, this wasn't an ordinary desk. It gleamed in the dim lighting, some sort of polished metal with a coating that left it feeling slick. He also noticed that it had never left a trace of having been touched. No coffee stains or fingerprints, but no one could tell him what it was made from. Not the desk, neither the devices it hid. Not even his CIO could fully explain all the gadgets that had been waiting him in the office on his first day on duty. He had telecommunications technology that seemed to have been taken from an Atlantis sci-fi channel television series, Stargate or Seeker 3000. He'd been told that much of it was cutting edge and as far from off the shelf as you could imagine. Everything about the Atlanta headquarters felt larger than life, from the office furnishings to the gymnasium. What boggled his mind was the notion that the leadership continued to call this their temporary quarters. Then they had showed him the computer models for the real HQ, already nearing completion. He swore it was something the Japanese had designed, like those transforming robots Willie always watched on television. Speaking of which, he looked at the digital readout on his computer screen. It showed Zulu time and Decatur time, and saw that it was growing late. Maybe he could eat on the way home, risking crumbs in the car. Yeah, time to call it a night. Lifting the handset from his desk phone, he had an instant connection to his secretary, who put in even more hours than he did. Lieutenant Adenaya, it's time to go home, he said. I'll call the motor pool, she said. I'll pick up the car around front, he acknowledged. Better enjoy this while I can. I gather the compute to the real office will be a real bitch. But with no traffic to speak of, she counted, and given the parking lot they call the 128 Beltway, I have to say that I approve. She clicked off. He liked her soft Afrikaans voice and thought they worked well together, even though she had been assigned to him without choice. In fact, she had been hired before him and had spent a week readying his office while he was still being briefed by the council. He began scooping up the clutter, forming it into a single pile so he could quickly locate whatever he needed, placing other items in the outbox that he knew would be tended to the moment he cleared the doorway. Things ran smoothly here, and he never had to sweat the details, focusing instead on the big picture. That must be why they pay me the big bucks. So intent was Stoner on organizing his desk, deciding on a wrap or salad for dinner, rather than the greasy, tasty cheeseburger, and figuring out what lame excuse he could offer his wife, he didn't hear the door slide open. As it softly locked into place, however, Stoner heard the click and looked up to see if the lieutenant needed something before he left. There was no one by the door. Instantly alert, he glanced around the office. By the couch was a shape. A man shape. Stoner's hands moved. One reached for the Glock at his hip. The other tapped the red key that instantly deleted his hard drive and sent out an emergency signal. He knew his computer was backing up his data every 45 seconds, so little could be lost. The Glock 17 carried 17 rounds, but was also low weight with a reasonable recoil, allowing him to fire it accurately with one hand. The pistol aimed itself at the couch, but the figure was missing. As thin grey smoke from the self-immolating disk drive wafted up from beneath the desk, a fist swung from the opposite side, connecting with the Major's temple and sending him to the carpeted floor. He couldn't imagine how the assailant had got past the building's state-of-the-art security, or how he managed to move so silently now, here within the office. But he brushed the thoughts aside and crouched to defend his turf. The smoke actually helped him frame the figure, and Stoner launched himself forward. His hands grabbed onto a fabric and felt the realness of the man. The intruder's hands were already in motion, clubbing Stoner's ears and causing concussive pain. The soldier refused to let go, though, and as the man tried to box his ears a second time, Stoner headbutted him. The forces of impact made the man fall back, and Stoner raised the pistol, eager to gain an advantage. Instead, a swift kick knocked the gun loose from his hand, and a second connected with the major's right kneecap. An explosion of the pain travelled from knee to hip, and he staggered. The attacker pressed his new advantage and swung with the lefts and rights to keep Stoner off balance. A thick-muscled man, Stoner stayed low and absorbed most of the blows, although he couldn't gain the upper hand. He had to put his enemy down, and fast. His hand found the barrel of his Glock and quickly scooped it up. There was no time to reverse it, so he used the handle to bludgeon. He felt metal connect with bone, and attacker grunted once, the first sound he had made. Stoner rose to his feet, feeling the pain throb up his right leg, making standing difficult but not impossible. He focused on his breathing, keeping it controlled, and measured the distance between the two of them. His assailant passed into the glow of the desk lamp, and what the major saw made him pause. The other man was wearing some sort of camouflage that let him flawlessly blend in with the wood paneling, patterned carpet, or even the metal desk. It covered every inch of his body, and had to be some sort of new material, he thought quickly. But then the intruder crashed again. The techies could study the fabric once the assailant was in the brig. Stoner launched himself through the air, a direct assault, his right hand still hefting the pistol. The left hand pulled it back in his fist of granite. They collided and rolled over the desk, scattering its contents, then went tumbling to the ground, the Stoner smacking the pistol into the man's hooded head. He heard the glass goggles crack, just a little tinkle, but it caused him to grunt with satisfaction. This low to the ground, the air was tangy with smoke of burning circuits, which were softly crackling from within his futuristic desk. They rolled away from it and banged into the desk chair, which in turn rolled to give them room. Over and over they went, grappling with neither man gaining a clear advantage. Stoner was on top for a brief moment and raised his right arm to land a hard blow with the pistol, hoping to put the man out. Instead, he heard a soft metallic sound, then felt a very sharp blade slice through his starched white shirt and flowered blue tie and into his skin. He looked down and saw the knife blade extend from under the attacker's left wrist, attached to a bracelet of some sort. The blood blossomed across the now ruined shirt, a black stain in the murkiness, and he felt the cool steel pierce skin, blood vessels and muscle cutting deep. He tried to cry out for help, but blood filled his throat, making it painful enough to breathe. The knife jerked in and up, gutting him like a freshly caught fish. Within seconds, Stoner lost consciousness. His final clear thought was a flash of regret that he couldn't take Willie to the Falcons game that weekend. Once Stoner was a lump of flesh on the floor, the intruder stood and surveyed the room. Not only had the computer fried itself, but the files were a scattered mess, and he didn't have time to glean with their value. Still, that didn't concern him. Any intelligence would be appreciated, but had been a secondary goal. His mission had been to kill Rick Stoner, and it had been successfully accomplished. The assassin knew he had only minutes to retrace his steps and slip away before being caught by the night shift security detail, however many remained alive. He had to exit the brown stone and reach the spot where his transport awaited him. Quickly, he left the office and strolled past the body of Lieutenant Adenaya, slumped over her own terminal. As he passed her cooling form, he reached under his outfit for a small metal box. With one hand, he slid open a seal and depressed a single button. Then he sat the box next to the lifeless woman. He was safely 3 blocks away before the explosion that reduced the building to a heap of rubble. Without turning, the man muttered under his breath, "Hail Hydra." Chapter 1